Hi, welcome back to the Enneagram Entrepreneur Interviews. I am Whitney Ellison with Wellison Enterprises, and I have a screaming baby downstairs that you might be able to hear through my headphones. So it is what it is. Welcome to working from home during COVID times. Anyway, today I've got a great guest for us, and she is an Enneagram Type 2, Wing 3. Her name is Dina Haggenjos, and she's the founder of the company My Free Well. I'm going to let her explain what she does, but she's a holistic coach and also a doula, I believe, so she's got a fantastic background. And it looks like she just joined, and I also see a handful of other amazing gals that joined. It's nice to see everybody. And so, Dina, when you're ready, there you are, your request. I'm going to bring you on. Hope everybody's doing well today, getting a good bite to eat during their lunch hour. Just kind of saying hi to everyone. Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
good. How are
Welcome.
you? Thanks for having me. This is going to
Oh,
be
I'm so
fun.
happy you're here. And okay, so just a heads up, I have a fussy baby downstairs with the babysitter. You may
Yes.
hear some sound effects in the background. I swear it's not a cat being murdered. It is just a baby that is upset.
I totally get it. My house is empty other than my dog, but she may very well bark too. So no
Oh,
worries.
well,
Babies are
I love
yeah.
dogs.
I
How's
do
your
too.
reception?
She's
Can you hear and see me okay?
I can hear and see you fine. I'm just trying to lower this and I think I'm okay. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yep. I hear you. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, happy Monday.
Yeah, right into it. I feel like this week is going to get off to a good start, and I'm just excited to be here. And thanks for having me. But yeah, ready to get started.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. So, one thing I'm going to ask you to do for just a second is hang tight because I'm going to switch my phone to data because I'm feeling a delay between us, and I think this will help. So, it'll go dark for a second. For those of
Okay.
you watching, hang tight for just a minute. I'll be right back. Let's see. Are you there?
I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I actually, truth be
No
told, I
worries.
meant to do that before I jumped on. I'm full of tips for preparing for IG Lives and didn't follow my own. So thank you for the grace. Let's
No worries.
definitely get started. So,
Yeah.
friends that just joined, this is Dina Haggenjos. I got it right? Because I
You
practiced.
did. Yeah. Yeah,
All
you got it
right.
right. Wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for even thinking to ask that ahead of time. I mean, like I said,
Absolutely.
it would not be the first time that it was pronounced wrong, even if you did. So thanks.
Absolutely. And you're a two wing three, and we're going to
Mhm.
talk about your life as an entrepreneur and as a somebody that leads with the type 2 motivation. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and your business and talk a little bit about your Enneagram type and so forth. We'll just kind of free flow it for right now.
Cool. So my name is Dina, and I am a two with a three wing. My business that I launched last year, just ahead of the pandemic, is Free Well, and it's a women's holistic wellness coaching business. I'm also a certified postpartum doula, working on other certifications as well. But I really call myself a fierce nurturer, which goes along. We'll talk more about that with the two. Um, but I really work to help empower through education, support, information, and that knowing one's
Mhm.
options on how to create a well. I call it a well, so a women's wellness, and really taking an integrative approach. So, as a certified integrative nutrition health coach, I'm really about taking all parts of someone's experience and life and that, all those little nuances, which really mixes in my research background, to create, what they feel is their desired experience. So that could mean how they want to welcome their baby to how they want to walk into motherhood, and so forth, or if they're wanting to tackle a particular health goal or something like that. So I know you had asked, like, what's my mission, and I love talking about it, but it really started from this idea of, I just want people to get more curious and research themselves a bit more, which stems a lot from my previous career too. So just seeing that power of curiosity turned inward.
I love that. I find that a common ground with you there. I think that that's great. Now, really quickly, you said a few things I want to get back to, but first, what was your previous career? Let's hear about that for a minute, how that influenced you.
Yeah, so I have my master's in diagnosis and intervention, which sounds really like, ooh, but I was organizational communication and culture and all things that I was very interested in human story. So I'm an ethnographer. I love qualitative side of things. I like that you have the quantitative research, which I like too, but I really feel like we miss so much of the context if we don't have that story and depth and all those little details. So in previous career, I've done everything from working within organizations on studying their people, their culture, and doing implementation stuff. I worked abroad for a period of time with a new organization on trainings and infrastructure. Came back to the States and found myself with a wonderful company. I love the people there. And I was doing market research and innovation. So working with large brands. Procter & Gamble was one of my biggest ones here. And really researching the people that they served, their consumers, to better innovate for them. And the company that I was working for really approached it from an empathic lens, which is why I fell in love with their
Perfect
process.
for a two. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I worked with them for several years, traveled the world, I say, researching other people until I felt like I needed to start researching myself more. And it was a lot of fun. And I was exposed to so many different studies, from neuroscience to empathic researchers, just like that's what they do and study, to ideation work and creativity. And it was this beautiful blend of a lot of different things, which I have tried to carry on to the work that I'm doing now. But I was an account director when I left there. So kind of overseeing several brands and having a team and all the things. But
what a gorgeous breadth of experience. And I'd love for you to tell me and anybody watching, what is an ethnographer?
Yes, I say it's like a deep dive research where you're truly experiencing life alongside that person and or within that environment. So we could be researching a certain environment and you're spending long periods of time. So with the company, that could be days, it could be hours. In the work that I did before and when I was getting my master's, we would spend long periods of time, like days, into certain environments and really getting to know it on a repeated time. So like over several months.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So it's a deeper dive, I would say, in terms of really getting to know whatever it is you're studying.
That's really interesting. When I was at P&G, I remember there were certain groups of folks that would go visit consumers and spend a day with them. So is it similar to that type of work for?
Yeah, and when I transferred to Seek and worked with companies like Procter & Gamble and others, we do everything from one-on-one interviews, to in-home interviews. So I was one of those people that would go in home. I spent many conversations on bathroom floors or within shopping areas and that, but really getting to understand the environment and life of that particular individual.
It's so powerful when you're alongside somebody. I mean, it really takes the context of standing in someone's shoes to a whole nother level. And I feel like with, the type 2 leading with the motivation of the desire to be needed, because of that innate gift that they have for empathy and for understanding others' needs, maybe even before others understand their own needs. Sometimes it's perceived and sometimes it's not, depending on the underlying reasoning behind it. Anyway, that seems like a perfect suited educational role for somebody coming with that type of motivation.
Yeah, it was, I'd like to say it was all intentional, but even as I was, reflecting on my own journey, and every time that I would go to apply for another job, or even I remember in college, I had this idea in mind of what I was going to be doing and going after, and one thing would lead to another. And I remember feeling like, gosh, they're so disjointed. But really, when I take a step back and look, there's really like big things that, are a part of each part that I was, each role, each internship, and at the root of it is story and really understanding depth, and like a real fascination with people,
Yeah.
and just an appreciation for them. Because
I love that.
I went into school thinking I wanted to be a broadcast journalist for like
So did I.
Yeah, a number of reasons. And after some jobs there and realizing that is not what I wanted to do, for certain reasons, but it blossomed. It led to the next step, and then the next thing, and then the next thing.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. And so,
yeah.
okay, so now let's go back to the present day and
Mhm.
Freewell. And I love that you said you like to call yourself a fierce nurturer. I love that. You talked a bit about being a postpartum doula. Can you tell me what the difference is between a postpartum doula and a doula, generally speaking?
A doula, generally speaking, is someone that is looking out for that the woman that's
Mm-hmm.
having a baby and the family as a whole, but really focused on the woman, her mental, emotional, physical needs, and really being a support system. And that can look and come in many different ways, through education, physical support, emotional support, being there. I really approach it from, I want to empower them. So there's a lot of education. And so you have doulas, generally speaking. You have labor doulas, so birth
Mm-hmm.
doulas that are going to
Which
be
is what
there.
I always think of with the word doula. Okay.
Yeah. And I have a little bit of that because I do some birth education within some of my client work, and that I am not in the season of life where I'm wanting to be on call, because birth doulas really have to be on call,
Right.
to be there. And now it's very different. You have virtual support and in-person support depending on the hospital or birthing center policies right now. Whereas a postpartum doula, you're really focused on helping them walk into motherhood and kind of create that new reality, which you face a lot of different things, as you know, when you become a mom. And whether it's your first time or second time or third time around, there's new challenges. But it's really having someone there to aid in that and know that, they're focused on you, your emotional, physical support.
Gosh, that is so necessary. A couple weeks ago, I had on Lisa Hardwick, who wrote the book A Life Postpartum, my journey with postpartum depression, which was a powerful book, just very raw and honest, and talking about some very deep-seated, difficult postpartum depression, and putting a name and an actual story with it, to the point of the importance of stories. And one of the things that we talked about, and I know we're veering off, we'll come back in a minute, but one of the things we talked about was how nobody ever talks to new moms or moms that have just become a mother again. Like it doesn't have to be your first kid, right? It could be your third kid, like it was for me. But nobody ever talks about the grieving that comes with having a baby. And that is very real. You can simultaneously be joyful and be in grieving. And because what we don't acknowledge is the overnight shift that happens from your life as it was to your life as it is now. And it will never be the same, for better or worse. It will never be the same, because now you have brought in this new life, and your responsibilities and your identity and everything is shifted. And so I love the idea of a postpartum doula and a coach and somebody there to escort you into that stage, and to really make sure that you have the tools and the support needed to process the shift.
Yeah, it's a definite shift. That's great language. And the grieving, mourning of that self and that being to whatever it is you are or become, and it's going to continue to morph and ebb and flow in that. And I went through it. I had my first pregnancy was with twins, and it was a culture shock, and
Yeah.
I felt really well prepared. I had done all the things. I knew all the things, I thought,
Yep. Don't we all?
Yeah, it's very much a shift. And the coaching mixed with the doula, and it's a blend. I that's why it's so sometimes a little harder for me when I have calls with women and they're, sharing what they might want to go through, or they're not quite sure. Or should I sign up for this package versus this one? And I say, you know what, no matter what you do, you're going to get all of me, because I can't help but not give you the coach and the doula, because we don't know where you might be. Sometimes they're
Right.
wanting more of a specific help, or they think they're going into it with, I really want to have that nutrition background, that healing focus on my body to heal. And then as we go through it, they discover, X, Y, and Z, other things that just naturally come up, because it is such a shift, and we can only prepare so much. So
Yes.
yeah,
I love that. And I think that, again, that's a beautiful place for somebody that leads with a 2 motivation to find purpose work. And you had also mentioned that you are working on some other certifications, and I'm curious to hear what those are as well.
Well, I am working on even though in this season of life, I'm not signing up to be on call for labor doula. I am working on that just to help further extend what I can be doing prenatal education in that. I'm always looking to more how can I help moms prepare for birth, however they choose to give birth, however they want to. So there's more going into that. And I have goals in terms of more nutritional background. I've been doing some trauma-informed care, so that's especially important for, again, postpartum time, depending on how they went through it. And there's more. It's the amount of time. I'm feeling like since becoming a mom, I have so much passion and things that I want to work on, but I have to move at a much slower pace. Yeah.
Same. How old are your kids? Uh-oh.
And Leo is 2.5.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry. I lost you for a second. Go ahead.
The twins are 5.5, and
Yep.
my son is 2.5.
Oh, yes. So you're definitely in the throes of small children right by me.
Yes. Yeah. And then, mixing and like launching, my husband we have Thrive Chiropractic. So he's had that since 2008. And then I decided I'm going to launch my business. Like I said, it went right before kind of things started shutting down. And so this first year, I'm not even done with my first year yet, but everything had to change. What I thought I was going to be doing had to look so different. So it's definitely been a roller coaster. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I believe it. All right. Well, let's switch gears and talk about your journey with the Enneagram. How long have you been working with it? How did you get exposed to it? And just, your story.
Yeah. So the first exposure was, I want to say 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was right before I moved back to the States. And
where were you living?
I was living in Poland.
Okay.
Yeah. Right on the Czech-Polish border. And came back. And then the company that I started with, they were doing some team assessments and building and that. And they brought out an outside consultant that did the Enneagram. And we kind of had, I'd say, it's not a deep dive, but a team exercise in that. I was mistyped during that, come to find out.
Happens quite often in those types of programs. Yeah.
But I was fascinated with it then as a tool, and from the researcher of, you're always trying to look at people and things from different angles and different filters in that. So I have that folder still. I went back to it a little while ago, and was looking back through it, and I remember just finding a lot of comfort in the tool then because I was mistyped. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yes.
We went through the particular team that I was on then. There were 3 8s and then a 7, and then me, who was at that time typed as a 9.
Oh, wow. That's a mix.
Yeah, it was a mix.
Aggressive 1-9.
And we were having some challenges. And when we had that and could have that framework, I just remember feeling like, okay. Like, so it was comforting to know. And we could use that tool, you know, to almost be this sort of moderator between us and help communicate better with each other. So
yeah,
that was fun. That was neat.
It gave you the gift of like empathy for others, right? Even if you like, I'm super cautious with people getting mistyped because that cannot be good. However, the value that I'm hearing you extracted, which I think is extremely true, is the identification that not everybody thinks the same way. And so that gives you the power of compassion and empathy to understand that their interpretation of what you're putting out there may not be what you intended. It's all about how they receive it, right? And isn't that powerful to realize?
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, it was super powerful. There was one particular team member that we were just butting heads, and I remember we were sitting down as a team, and I was saying, you know, he could send you this in these words, and I would send you the same thing. And she was another female. We're the only 2 females on this team, and you would take it differently. Like, and so we had a lot of tough conversations, but needed conversations. And so it was useful. It was very valuable, and it helped me, I would say, shift. You know, earlier in my career, I'd say there are definitely times where I would receive feedback and take it very emotionally. Like the emotional maturity was still needing to be developed and stuff.
Your heart space.
And I would take it really hard. And I would say this was a good shift where I could see, you know, different people painted a certain way and see what my triggers were and how to communicate and stuff. And it helped, you know, furthered that development of emotional maturity. So I wouldn't take things so personally. And because they weren't fun conversations to have with them and feel like this outsider and stuff. So I remember it being very comforting. I read a lot of books and podcasts since then. And then in 2018, my husband and I, we hired my friend who's also an Enneagram coach and did a deep dive with her. We did this big assessment, and she met with us for a couple hours individually, got typed, and then we had another meeting, and then got this like 50-page report. And so that was very useful. And my husband and I have used that every year since. We get it out, and you know, the first year we got it out during our planning in January, and kind of went through each other's triggers. And he was sort of in denial because the tool was newer to him. So he was.
Is he an 8?
Yes.
Well, 8's defense mechanism is denial.
Yeah.
So that sounds about right.
Yeah, he was, you know, and no one, I feel like no one likes to hear their type and all that comes with it the first time. Like, you have to soak it in because there's strengths and harder things to hear with each type. So even me, it was like, you know, I had those cringe moments when I was hearing mine. So anyways,
that's how you know it's working.
Yeah. If you have the cringe, then you know it's right. Yeah. So
that's so funny.
Yeah, we've used that report, and it's been really helpful. I will say it gave me a lot of pause as I found out I'm a 2 with a 3 wing, and I went through a lot of different exercises just to see how that's played out in my life. And, you know, this was during the time where I was starting to think about my business. Well, I had a lot of plans laid out, journaled, everything. Was already doing the integrative nutrition and health coaching education. And when I found out some of the core motivations of the two, and, you know, some of the things that you could do when you're maybe less aware and manipulate different things, it gave me a lot of pause and kind of freaked me out in terms of, am I getting into what I'm about to get into for the right reasons?
But but that is the great thing about it, right?
Yeah.
Because it does make you examine your choices and then ask yourself, is this motivation true and pure?
Yes.
Or am I doing this to service this subconscious protection and this subconscious defense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had a conversation the other day as an 8 about how I have a really good BS detector, right? And I was kind of joking about it, and she, you know, she's somebody that is I consider to be a deeply spiritual person that I heavily respect, and she was like, why do you need that tool? And I was like, I don't know, I'm good at it. And she's like, but why do you need to worry about what other people's intentions are with you? What is the root of that, and why does it really matter? Because if you have evolved enough to where you're secure with yourself, it shouldn't matter what their intentions are. You should just be able to operate from love anyways. And I was like, oh. So you mean this narrative I've been tying myself to is a bunch of garbage?
Yeah.
Damn it. You know, and it was like so uncomfortable, and because it was so true,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so how powerful is that, you know, that we can examine those things. It's just like the narrative the two ties to herself often, you know, is, well, I'm just trying to help. But why? Is it because you haven't been able to ask for what you need? So you're projecting what you need onto others and expecting them to just see that?
Yeah.
And then that hurts to think about, because there's some truth to it. And with every type, there is that reflection. And it's not just that particular motivation, but that motivation tends to be what we lead with. We all have a little bit of every type in us, which is beautiful, and which is also why I'm a heavy proponent of understanding the Enneagram holistically and not just your type. Because that's how we really get to the root. Not only do you exercise out the defense mechanisms that you lead with, you exercise out the defense mechanisms of the other types too, because we have all of them in us. So really awesome stuff. And I totally digressing, but I love that you mentioned that. I love that it made you think twice. I love that you examined your why before taking the leap with your business. That, so wise.
Yeah, it's been a process, and knowing sort of my tendencies, or where I can go when I'm more stressed versus more in the flow, and that it's been, and I think will continue to be, a constant conversation as I build, you know, what it is I'm trying to build, but in a very mindful way. When I was going through reflecting on my story, you know, years ago when we did this deep dive, and kind of seeing where I could see these patterns playing out really strongly in my life. You know, I'd say younger self, it really shifted from like, once I saw the effects of, oh, do this and get this, you know, then it shifted to like, let me do this so that I can better be this and better help people, you know. So I created this image in my mind of what success would look like, and that just put me on this fast track, like laser focus, which is really the 3 coming in strong too. Let me climb, let me do this, let me achieve this success that I think is success. Did that and still felt very unfulfilled. And in certain areas, not completely. It shocked people when I left work. It like jaw dropped. It also shocked them, some of the people that know me well, when I wanted a family, because they just didn't see me as that way. I was so like lasered in, and always the optimistic, and always this, and the one that, you know, had the answers. And I really shifted from this place of, you know, climbing and doing. When I left and physically was away, that time where I was working and living in Poland, and away from the people that I thought needed me in a certain capacity and stuff, I honestly don't know. I was thinking about that this morning, how my development would have been had I not had that period of time, because finally then I was so far away, literally, that I couldn't immediately be there for things and people that I thought needed me in some sort of capacity, you know, whether that was real or not. But so I kind of say I got the taste of like what it was like to do. I was still doing and trying to achieve, but a little bit of being, because here I could travel. I was going out to eat alone. I was traveling
Dreaming.
alone. Yes. And all these things that I, you know, just always thought, oh, I'm this extrovert. I do this. I network and I, you know, and all that alone time really was the first time that I felt like I could really like be. I didn't notice it, and I didn't call it then what I see it as now. And so when I came back to the States and then got back on, shifting, laser focus to do, I felt like I was missing that other part, that being side. And when I got pregnant, that's where I feel like the outer kind of collided with the inner work that needed to be done, and shifting. And there were some things happening with family where my dad was, you know, terminally ill, and just a lot was coming to a headway. And that's what caused me to like pause and slow down, put the brakes on. And so as I went through that and went to this focus of like, just let me be, which was probably the best thing for me as a 2 and where I was headed on that track, that's where I feel like I got to know myself, and like, what is it that I want, and where do I see myself? And, you know, because I had achieved what I thought was what I wanted, and that wasn't it. And so as I move into this place of like building, it's really, I'm trying to chase more of the building while, preserving those still moments. Like, how I've talked to my therapist about this, like, how can I still, you know, create those still moments, be still while moving, you know? And so all that to say, to your last point, I think it's going to constantly be a check for me to create, you know, how I can be mindful of that so that I don't go that way again, you know? I think it's just going to be a constant check.
So I love, first of all, thank you for sharing that. I think your story is very powerful. And what I hear, you know, we of course, with the Enneagram, you have the 3 centers of intelligence. You have the head, the heart, and the body. And so the 2s lead very deeply with the heart. They respond to stimuli first with emotion, right? The body, center of intelligence, responds first to stimuli with impulse, and the head responds first to stimuli with thought. And so when we have all of these aligned, we operate as our whole selves, right?
Yeah.
But each type has work that is specific to a certain area of their body that they do not tap into as frequently as the primary and secondary areas. And so for the 2, first they go heart, and then they go body. So they're like emotion, do, emotion, do, emotion, do. And they're not as much moving into that head space. So you said the word that I really think sits with me is mindful. You are now thoughtfully slowing yourself down to ensure that all 3 of these parts of you are operating from that space before making decisions and choices and actions. And I think that's the work of all of us, depending on what space we come from. For an 8, like myself, we're very impulsive and naturally impulsive. And so the work really for us, we go from body to head. And so we completely deny we have emotions, that denial defense mechanism, right? We have to be strong and, you know, protect and all these things. So our work is getting into that heart space and pulling that in so that we're working with our whole selves. And so what you've talked about, really, I hear this so much, because what you did was you shifted from that emotional need for external validation into doing for yourself. You moved into your body and you started doing for yourself. And it's almost like your body responded for you and like told you what you needed, even because you said you didn't even really think about it when you were doing it. But then afterward you reflected and it was like, okay, if I can mindfully do this, now you're pulling your head in, right? Yeah. Now I'm operating with my whole self.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love your story. It makes so much sense to me. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It's been a journey. But it's been really, as I've kind of peeled back more and more layers, so useful. And yeah, what you said there, really stepping forward, I feel like with my whole self, the 30s, mid 30s, I just turned 37. And I was telling Pete, I'm like, I really feel like, I've done a lot of intensive work in the last couple of years on discovering and, I know certain parts and all types have some shame with it, but with the twos, there's certain things there that have had a significant play that happened, earlier in, 20 some years ago, but still I had denied them. And so it's been a journey, and really getting to know all parts of myself and discovering, because I was always the optimist, and I still very am. And I appreciate that about me and my attitude of to see the silver linings and to have that attitude. I like it and I appreciate it, but I also realize now more than ever that you can't have the light without the dark, and and to sit with myself and let myself experience all of the emotions, to be hospitable to them, when they knock on the door, versus trying to suppress certain things or put out this certain image of myself. And so it's been a really good journey, a healthy one. I mean, even just being here and the social platform and stuff, this is an exercise. It wasn't so much my posts and my blog, so much a business decision as it was, I was telling Pete, it's like for myself. That's an exercise for me, and vulnerability and being out there before it's perfect, because there is no perfect. So that's been a big shift for me. I remember a couple of years ago, someone telling me, like, just talk about how you're feeling more, because as a 2, I could instantly tell you what everyone else needed.
Repression.
Yeah. Like, oh, yes, you need this, you need that. And, but just being able to explain, I could be up in the headspace talking about what I was thinking, but not necessarily what I was feeling. And so connecting to that has been a journey, but a great one.
So I love that. And that leads me into the next question, just in discussing the core motivation, the to be needed. I already hear how it comes into play in your business. We've talked about that, so I'm not going to go into that anymore. But I'd love to hear how you're able to recognize and drive with that motivation, but also honor your own self-worth and yourself by honoring what you need. Can you share a little bit about what you do as a 2 to ensure that you have boundaries, that you are asking for what you need? And if you have any challenges with that, I'd love to hear that as well. I see a lot of 2s watching this right now that I know, so this will be very helpful for them too.
Yeah, there's actually, I had a couple notes on this because I wanted to come with some examples. So there's like 3 core things that I do because of my challenges and being a 2 within business. So some of the challenges is just like containing. So I have a tendency, like, I want to be consumed. I want to help you, and I can feel all of what you're feeling and then some. I remember hearing 2s don't feel their own emotions. They feel everyone else's. And I feel that. And so it's been a lesson on, and it goes back to, researcher data, which I could do this within the research world, but now in this coaching doula context, it's been a little different. So I'm learning to reapply some of the methods that I would do long ago of my data versus their data, and it goes back to that self-awareness of, asking myself, pausing, like, who is it that wants to help? Why is it that I feel called to do this? Is it a hurt part of me from the past that feels like I need to do forward? Is it the person that wants to withhold an image that needs to move forward or help? Or is it the healer coach in me that is doing this and is fulfilled by this? Like, who is it? And am I trying to help them do what they ultimately want to do or what I think they should do? Because that's another thing. So really asking a lot of questions with that and pausing. So the other thing that I do, and I'm getting more and more deliberate and carving out more and more time for it, is finding alone time. Like, that's so important to preserve my sanity. Otherwise, I know I get tapped out, I get exhausted real easily. But alone time, and that can look like alone time within my own house or outside the house. I already have ideas on more trips alone when we can travel again, but I know that I know how much I thrived when I was doing that, like really getting away by myself. And I know that I can benefit from that. So alone time is a big one. And nurturing myself. And then this side, and with that, I know it benefits my work, because if I don't give myself that white space, that alone time, then the work is constantly coming from me versus through me. And I know
smart.
I really thrive, and I'm more like that 4 in my relaxed flow state when the work is coming through me. And so if I don't give myself space to really have those moments and think those thoughts and just listen to myself or be still, then it is going to constantly, I'm just going to be pushing work out, and it's more forced versus.
And it's not holistic to all 3 centers, right?
Yes. Yeah. And then another practice too is just that container. So really, even after I meet with the clients, sometimes they're going through some tough things, or, if they're feeling really down on themselves for whatever reason, if they're not being able to, move forward or progress in a certain way or at the pace that they think they should, or they're dealing with really hard things within their family, whatever it could be, we take those on. And so I've had to learn like how to detach after that so that I can move on with my life. And it could be a simple exercise from a meditation afterwards, and setting my intention, before meeting with them. Also physically thinking of a container. Here is this woman's story and her work, and I love it, and I will hold it, and I will be there for her. But for now, I'm putting it in this space, in this container. So that's been an exercise that I've had to do, so that I'm not, because I will constantly be thinking for her and about her and all of that and carrying it versus living in the moment. So that's been another thing. And then I talked a little bit about this, but this idea of, a challenge for me, and with the 3 wing also, is I might have that tendency, I'm very watchful of it now, to like go, zone in, or be mindful of an image. Like before in my role, years ago, like I felt like I was so confident and could be in a room of hundreds or 20 or 5 and be fine and spot on, because I just knew, and I felt super polished. In this work, I do not feel super polished. I feel messy.
You're vulnerable.
Yeah, and it's been great, but I feel like I am showing up in a much better way that sits better with my heart and life and flow and that. So that's why I say, when I'm writing, whether it be a post or on my blog or whatever, it is really me. It's an exercise for me first. And whoever it may help, but I show up in a much more take it or leave it, this is me, versus will they like me kind of thing.
You are recognizing and ruling out the need for that external affirmation to boost your self-worth. You're okay with yourself just the way you are.
I am. And I've thought through, like, even just, they say we would do this failure exercise in and ideation work. Like, what is the worst that can happen if we were to create this or go this way? What's the worst? And then take it a step further and a step further and a step further. And I've thought through those things, and really, like, at the end of the day, it's not that bad. I guess that's the beauty too of having your own business, is the freedom to put something up there and take it down quickly, or you know, change things up or talk the next day. I'm constantly learning. I think on my blog and many places on my website, I was intentional about, like, you know, life and me is imperfectly perfect, is what I say a lot with my clients. Yeah. And it's on the site of just showing that up that way, and unpolished. My feed, it's not beautiful. I love beautiful things. And some people, I go to their feed and it's just gorgeous and it feels all gorgeous. And I look at mine and I'm like, that's messy, but
but it's real,
yeah.
You know?
And it's not as thought out. There are weeks where I might have some things that I know I want to teach on and plug it in, but more often than not, it's just coming more through me. Like, oh, I have something and I want to put it out, you know?
Yeah.
And so that is totally different than how I showed up in my previous work and all the jobs that I've had. I've always felt like I've had to think through something 10 different ways, anticipate all the challenges or reactions that I might have before I actually act. And I'm really trying to show up for myself in a much different way here, because I think I'm getting the most growth from it and really feeling whole. So yeah, stillness, asking those questions. Why am I helping? And who is it that wants to help? Who's showing up in me? And then
let's go. Wait.
Yeah.
Who's showing up in me? Pause for a minute. Let's talk about that. Who could be showing up in you? Can you give me some examples of who that person might look like? This is, again, we have a lot of twos watching, and this is good for me. Like, I would love to hear this.
Yeah. So who's showing up in me as I've been going through this exercise of really getting to know, acknowledge, and honor all parts of me, all life situations, experiences that have happened to me. Two of which I had mentioned earlier were sexual assaults that I felt very responsible for at the time and for years. And I've only really confronted them in the last 2.5 years, where I feel differently and I honor and I see all the strength that they did do and everything. That's one example. Also, the little kid in me that felt like I needed to do a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way, be involved in certain activities in order to get, you know, love, acknowledgement, and feel like I'm making them proud, kind of thing. There's that part of me. There's the part of me that, you know, is the climber and the doer and yes to all things, and has this certain focus on what I thought, you know, was success. So all these different parts of me in the back. There's the part of me when I became pregnant and realizing what that experience was like for women and walking through that, feeling empowered care versus disempowered care. That's a big one with the work that I do.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so I would say this showed up many times. I recently wrote a blog post about this. But it's a part one, but about those moments when we feel really disempowered with our care. So for instance, the first time that I remember it happening was when I was in college, had moved away and scheduled my first doctor's visit on my own, researched people, all of that. And I have always been one to ask questions. Curiosity has always been there. Some people have called it challenging, like, oh, why do you challenge authority? Or why do you challenge this? And I've never thought of it that way. I've just thought of it, I'm seeking information and I have a right to know, especially when it's about my body.
Right.
But getting into that room with whatever type of provider it was, asking some questions, and you can sense, you know, whether it's a provider or a friend or an acquaintance, when you know you're annoying them, they don't think that you have a right to be asking these questions. And they're certainly not going to, you know, feed into them anymore or entertain your thoughts in that. So I felt that early on. And I remember going back, and I asked in this particular story that I shared in this post, I was asking these questions, and finally that he had confronted me saying, wow, you ask a lot of questions, but not in a great way. And like, who do you think,
Accusatory.
who do you think you are? And why are you
Mm-hmm.
asking these? And in this case, I was, I remember feeling very red in the face, embarrassed, but also angry.
Mm-hmm.
And, just, I remember apologizing at some point, and after he had left, being so angry with myself that I had apologized for asking
Right.
questions.
It came from a place of shame, right? That
Right.
apology. Yeah.
Yes. And I've worked with lots of women where they feel they've gotten blood work and they're coming to me with a certain health goal, but feeling like this was never explained to me, or I have no idea what this means,
Mm-hmm.
or a lot of prenatal clients that, they feel they're going through, especially during this COVID stage where things have been so different, and they're being told, here's this pamphlet, this should give you the information that you need, or,
Mm-hmm.
so more disempowering. They're building you up. When I became pregnant and was encouraged to interview different providers and get to know them, and that I would say, and even before we had conceived, just learning and being with my husband, who's a chiropractor and much more aware of like the different types of providers and practices out there. And I was just soaking all of it in, and learning like, oh, there are people that want to really work with you and empower you. And what I feel like is a more empowering approach to care. And
Gosh,
so, yeah.
okay. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for the work you're doing on that. It's certainly a necessary need in our society that has not been openly addressed. So I at the end, I'd love to, of course, list your blog post. I would love for you to share where your blog is and so forth, so people can check out more information on that. But that is fascinating to me. And again, I hearken back to the idea of excuse me, two's biggest area of work, is boundaries and being able to say no and being able to ask for what they need. And so really getting into the core of that through empowered and disempowered care is a great examination and a great resource that I think deserves further exploration in your work, in terms of anybody that's watching this. I love that you brought that to light. Thank you for sharing that.
And that was in regards to when you'd asked, like, if I stop myself and ask, who is it that wants to help, and who's showing up that wants to help? That would be one of those people that would be in the back, that's part of Dina, the many parts of Dina. And so I say that as a practice for twos. And for me, I stop myself and ask, why do I want to help? Who is it that wants to help? And the watch out there are parts of me that may have been offended in the past for whatever reason, whether it was disempowered care and really feeling like, justice wasn't done, or like feeling like certain party isn't being served. And the watch out there is, again, my data versus their data, making sure that I'm showing up, the person that's showing up has the best intentions, that it's not coming off from a place of, oh, let's I want to help because I feel like this person is being wronged. That might be there, and that's why I say I'm a fierce nurturer and with my clients, but I want to be mindful that a lot of times women aren't seeking the kind of experience that maybe I wanted, and that's okay.
Right.
So it's just being mindful of who is it that wants to help, who's showing up, and
Gosh, thank you. That's so helpful. That's so helpful for any type on the Enneagram. I think you articulated it beautifully, and that's certainly going to give me pause going forward and putting it in that context. And I even think about a writing exercise to really parse out who's in me, those roles that this could be. And that to me is powerful, just to examine that, because I'm aware of the different ones, but it doesn't mean that I'm thinking in that context. So thank you for sharing that. That's so helpful.
Mhm.
Well, we're running low on time. So I would love if you have anything specific about your business you want people to know or share about that's coming up, any new things that are coming, any offerings that are coming. I'd love for you to take this opportunity to tell our audience what you might have coming down the pipeline.
Sure. Yeah. I am in the process of getting ready to launch my first group coaching. I've gotten a lot of inquiries about group coaching, and this would be prenatal postpartum. So if there's anyone that is expecting or just had a baby and wanting to be a part of an intimate group, that's the other thing. I want it to be a small, intimate group.
Mm-hmm.
So you can contact me. That is going to
Great.
be launching we're in February, March, April. Yeah. And
Okay.
then I also have a workshop coming up with 2 other women. I think I saw Corey on here and Mindy also. We're going to be doing a workshop, a virtual workshop offered all about your cycle, how to work with it from a fitness and nutrition level to mindfulness level. And then, yeah, explore My Free Well is my site, myfreewell.com. Explore it. I have different packages, but like I said, you're going to get all of me. And so the best place to start is I offer a free discovery call for anyone that's interested in working, because it needs to be a right fit for you and for me, because it is a more intimate relationship when you're coaching with someone in whatever capacity. And if I can't help, I always try to offer people or places that I think might be helpful to that particular person. And I will offer, if you mention this live, 10% off if you're interested in that Motherwell virtual village off your first month. So
How generous. That's so kind. Thank you so much. All right. And then the name of your blog is My Free Well too?
Yeah. So if you go to myfreewell.com, I think if you put /blog, it would take you to that, but it's
Okay.
Under my page. Oh, I see Corey.
Okay.
Woo-woo. And yeah, so you could go there. I also have a recipe page. You could poke around.
Nice.
My Instagram is a good place to go for information. I always put, if I have a blog post out on there, and that's under My Free Will also. And I think that's it in terms of
Perfect.
ways you can connect. Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. I've learned so much from you. I really appreciate you taking an hour of your busy schedule to join me and talk about your journey as an entrepreneur and as someone that leads with a type 2 motivation. And I look forward to the day when the COVID lifts and we can just go grab a cup of coffee. It would be really nice to meet you in person.
That would be awesome. Looking forward to that. Yeah.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you so
thank
much
you
for having me. This was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And thanks everybody for joining us. All right, Dina, have a good week. Take care.
You too. See ya.
All right. Bye.